Following a tour in Europe in 1912, Maggie booked passage to America on a new ship, reported to be the largest, most luxurious, and safest ever built. But on the night of April 14th, the Titanic struck an iceberg and sank. Maggie was one of just over 700 persons rescued. Another 1,600 lost their lives. And despite a succession of owners, it was always identified as the Molly Brown House. But why Molly? Well, her life was the stuff from which legends are made. In the 1950s, she became the subject of a Broadway musical, The Unsinkable Molly Brown. Written by Meredith Willson, the musical embellished some aspects of her life, changed others, and gave her the nickname Molly. It later became a successful movie starring Debbie Reynolds. The nickname stuck, and Maggie became known as Molly Brown. First activity of Historic Denver, which grew to be one of the largest historic preservation organizations in the West. And it continues to operate the house as a museum. Here, visitors get a glimpse of life as it was during the life and times of Molly Brown. Today, there is Maggie Brown the woman and Molly Brown the legend. Facts tell us what a person did, but legends tell us what a person was. Today, the life of Maggie and the legend of Molly are both preserved with unsinkable elegance at Denver's Molly Brown House.
Okay, we need a guide. Are you the first guide?
Yes. Welcome to the Governor's Mansion.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Sue Schultz. And you've probably heard that name, Cheeseman Lake.
Cheeseman Park.
Cheeseman Reservoir, Cheeseman Park. There's the Cheeseman Pavilion that was named in honor of him. He and his wife built the mansion, and it was finished in 1908, but he died just before the building was finished. So his wife and daughter made a few changes to the plans, and they moved in when it was completed in 1908. They lived here on the first formal event that was held, come on in, was in the living room. This is the entry hall. As you can see, the back room is almost to the back of the
And that's
sunroom
from
back
the
there.
stereo.
Yes, yes. The entry hall, you can see we have a very large door that is oversized, but it really fits with the architecture of the home. In the entry hall, we have a Beauvais tapestry from 1740. In the olden days, tapestries were used when the buildings were so cold, and it helped to keep the buildings warm, to block drafts. This piece is called a break front. It is done with all different kinds of wood to make the design.
Is that hand painted?
No, that's not painted. All of these little pieces are different kinds of wood, inlaid very carefully.
Inlaid.
And you'll notice the gilded animal feet. That was very typical of furniture from the 17th century.
I watched This Old House a lot.
Yes, that's a great show.
Well, this is far from that, Casey.
Yes. This house is in quite nice shape now. On this side, these are 19th century reproduction chairs.
Oh, wow.
The Chinese
That's nice.
theme on the lamps. And then this room, these doors, mirrored doors, are no longer used as doors. That goes into what is called the billiard room or the family room.
All the family. That it seems like they had like a study room in this same spot in this house in Highlands Ranch while we were living there.
Oh, nice.
So it was like the same thing.
The chandeliers are 17th century chandeliers. They were all designed with candles. And when they were purchased and installed in the house, they were wired for electricity. And you'll see there are a
Is
number
that
of
the
different
same one
styles.
as that the same metal that held candles? Do you know?
I don't know,
you don't know.
if that piece was replaced
But it is
when they
very
wired
old,
them.
that piece.
The chandeliers are very old, but the wiring was
Oh, the
done in the
wiring.
early 1900s.
Okay, I got it.
Yes. So here we have a parlor. The first formal event here was the marriage of Mrs. Cheeseman's daughter Gladys to John Evans. He was the grandson of the first territorial governor. The molded plaster ceilings are different in each room. They're exquisitely done, and this ceiling is very formal to go with the formality of the room. The piano is a 1914 Steinway. It has been electrified, and there are speakers throughout the house. It is wired so you can have music throughout the house. The furnishings are left over from the Betchers. They purchased the home in 1923 after Mrs. Cheeseman died. There were no furnishings left in the home when they purchased it, and they have done all the furnishings. They were very well traveled. They loved going to the Orient, and you will see many.
Is that her?
No,
Mrs.
that
Betcher?
is not. There is a picture of her in the library, and I'll point that out
Okay.
to you.
Oh, I like them couches.
The settee set was not in the living room. It was in storage, and one of the governor's wives found it in storage, had it refinished and reupholstered, and brought it into the room. And then the painting on the formal ceiling was done to match that.
I like stuff that's kind of exquisite. I like that kind of stuff.
Yes, it really is. The portrait that you asked about on the far wall is a portrait of Ceres, the goddess of grain.
Okay.
The wall sconces are gilded brass and ormolu, and then they have little silk shades on them, and those go around the room. The lamps are jade. vases which were converted to lamps for the room.
Oh, I see.
The only thing from the Cheeseman era is in 1979, their granddaughter donated the clock and the 2 candelabra on the mantle. She wanted there to be something from her grandparents who had built the home originally, and those are alabaster and gilt, and then the clock in the center.
Yeah, I like stuff like that.
There are more tapestries along this wall.
But you can't go in there.
No,
Right.
no.
Can't see those. Okay.
And then the Chinese urns, very formal urns, notable for their size.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, the chandelier. This was not original to the home. Mr. Betcher brought it. It is said to have hung in the White House in 1876 when Colorado was celebrating its statehood. And the story is when Jackie Kennedy was in the White House, she wrote to, I don't know if it was the governor or who, and asked to have that returned. In the olden days, they used to change furnishings when the administrations changed, and that's how these things became available.
They still do that. They like changed it around. And stuff.
Somewhat, yes. And so anyway, that is quite a historic piece, and the state refused to send it back to the White
Wow,
House.
that's really pretty.
The hall, this is an ornate Italian table with the silver and a black glass top. The mirror was found in storage, and one of the governor's wives brought it out thinking it really made a lovely complementary piece with the table.
That matches.
The home has 25,000 square feet. It's 3.5 stories tall. And the governor's family uses the upper level. So because that's private residence, that's the reason we tour only.
Oh, they use the upper level?
Yes.
Do they ever come down here and
Yes.
see what's going on?
Yes, sometimes Mrs. Ritter comes down and greets the docents who are guiding the tours.
I think they're pretty nice people, the governors of Colorado's had.
Yes, they
They
really
do a
are.
good choice picking them. Whoever does that, people or whatever.
These are jade lamps, unusual by the fact that they're lighted from within as well as the light on the top. This is the library. This is a room that Mr. Betcher, when he and his wife purchased the home, wanted to really add his personal touch to. The library was originally finished like the drawing room. He wanted it to be more like a formal library, so he had the quarter sawn oak paneling put up. You see the beautiful molded plaster ceiling. He had the wooden trim above the doorways hand carved to match the molded plaster ceiling. The Louis XV rolled cylinder desk is a reproduction made in the 19th century. That is a portrait of Louis XV that is above the desk. Originally, there was a small covered porch off the back here, and the Betchers added the beautiful palm room. As you can see, there are two beautiful windows, one window, one doorway. Originally, those were both windows, and there were windows just like that in the dining room. When the palm room was added on, they converted this to a doorway so that you would have access in and out of the palm room. He left this westmost window and put in shelves to display some of his fine Chinese art. The horses on the middle shelf are funerary horses. The pieces on the bottom shelf There's carved pink quartz, pink jade, some green jade, and the top pieces, I believe, are French cut glass. The rug is decorated with wildflowers of Colorado. You can see our state flower, the columbine, over there. You ask about Mrs. Betcher. That is her picture, the very small picture to the left of the fireplace. On Valentine's Day in 1924, Mr. Betcher gave her the deed to the house. So for most of its life, until it became the governor's mansion, this house has been owned by women, Mrs. Cheeseman and Mrs. Betcher.
That'd be a nice gift.
Yes, very nice gift. We do not know who the portrait is above the fireplace. They are trying to do research on that. The fireplace is beautiful red marble. And there are two very large Chinese urns in a beautiful azure color in the two corners.
Have they done any remodeling work on here anytime?
There's, well, the Betchers did quite a bit when they moved in 1923. Since then,
Does it have to be painted like every 5 years or something?
I don't know what the time schedule
really?
is, but yes,
My friend's a painter.
there's been
helping
painting.
him.
Yeah, and you can see the paint is in very nice condition,
it's
so
very
I'm
good.
sure it's been recently painted. The ivory piece over the cabinet in that corner is, what do you call that? Triptych. With
I know
a
that one.
Madonna on it. I love the way they painted the molded plaster ceilings to highlight like the ribbons and the scrolling around the edging.
You're looking for the word terracotta?
No, the horses are the terracotta, the funerary horses. Oh, the
I took
horse.
art history class in college,
Uh-huh.
so I'm kind of familiar with some of the words.
Sure. This is the palm room. It was added on by the Betchers. The floor is Colorado marble, quarried in marble, Colorado. On this end, there is a beautiful well head of marble. That's an Italian well head. The leaded glass windows were designed by Mr. Betcher. You'll see some of his interests. The flower, the seashell, there's a little garden worm, butterfly, a ship for sailing. They were quite the travelers. On this side, you can see on the two doors or two windows that open, there's a CK right in the middle of the shield, and an EB. That's for Claude K. Betcher and Eddie Betcher.
Oh.
Their initials were in there.
Well, I know a lot more about this place than I used to.
Sure.
I drive by here all the time on my way driving downtown from Littleton.
Sure.
I always take Logan.
It's a good way to come. When Mrs. Betcher had this room, all of the furniture in here was white. And when they would entertain formally, she would have throw pillows on the sofa, lights, and flowers that matched the color of her dress.
Wow.
So everything was coordinated to match. The bay, this room is 25 feet by 60 feet.
Is it
And
cold
then-
in here in the wintertime? Or do they close it in the wintertime?
No, they don't. And it really gets quite a bit of passive solar.
Oh, solar in the winter?
Sure, because we're facing south.
Oh.
And on a clear day, you can see Pikes Peak. I can't quite make it
Oh, I
out
can see
today.
it right there. It's behind that 9
That
News.
tall building.
That 9 News tower.
This is considered the small dining room. The family also has a kitchen and small dining room in the living quarters upstairs. But when the Betchers used this area, that was for more informal dining room.
Did they ever talk about like matters of state in here or anything?
I'm sure they do. And formal state meetings are held here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like with the foreign people,
Sure.
dignitaries and stuff?
Sure.
Wow, that's interesting.
Behind the mirrored wall, right in the center, is a door that leads into the butler's pantry where the dishes are stored,
Oh.
glasses, all those different things. Then, as we come back this way to the dining room, you'll see a door that goes into the kitchen where the food is prepared.
Oh. This is the dining room.
Yes, this is the formal dining room. The formal dining room table is hand-carved Italian walnut. There are leaves for it that are in storage right now, and that can expand to seat 24 people. You'll see the lion and crest legs. This rug was made to go specifically with this room. The carving of the flowers around the edges matches the carving around the edge of the table, and the geometric pattern in the center picks up the geometric pattern in the ceiling.
Wow.
At one time, this room was painted green, but in 2000, the governor's wife studied some of the old pictures and saw that it had been an off-white, and so it was painted like it had originally been. The gilt and marble-topped tables, the two match tables, and then the large mirrors, those are all French. The mirrors are very unusual because of their ornate design and the size, and they're in beautiful condition.
Wow, but I don't think I've ever seen a mirror that big.
And here is an example of how
You'll notice the chandelier here has a food theme. There are blown glass fruits on the chandelier.
And then you notice a lot of tables that have marble tops.
On the chair,
And again, a lot of fancy carving and furniture. And if you duck down, this is a green chloride. What do you think you see up here, the carving on the top? I think I see it.
the chair were done, the carved backs
Any other opinions?
were the chairs the men were seated in. And the chairs with the fabric back were where the women were seated. So that if servants were serving, when they would come to the table, if you had a short person in the chair, you wouldn't know if there was necessarily a man or a woman at that spot. Because of the high backing, yes. And so they would know if it was a man's chair or a woman's chair. Mrs. Betcher was of small stature, and so you'll see the little cushions under the two armchairs. That was so that her feet wouldn't dangle. She had a place to rest her feet. This is the state china. It's exquisite. It was done by an American company, Picard International. The seal of the state is at the top of the plate, and in the gold at the bottom, it says Betcher Mansion.
And those probably that heated in the family had really hard to match the ceiling. And I think he was
The salad plate and the little soup bowl
in fact,
have the Colorado Columbine in it. Aren't they beautiful?
well, you couldn't have that. The fireplace would move.
And those were purchased with donations from people in the state of Colorado. The silver box at this end was Mrs. Betcher's traveling jewelry box. It is, and I'm sure it's very heavy.
Yeah, what about her shoe closet?
Yeah, this is. I mean, my jewelry when I travel fits in a little cloth bag.
Yeah, I don't even wear jewelry, so.
And so I think it's so cool that in this house,
Nice.
that Mrs. Cheeseman built it, and Uncle first, and then we have
Very nice.
Mrs. Betcher.
Now,
And then, of course, we did not belong to the state. And our current first lady
What about that? Did you mention that gold urn over there?
No, I didn't mention that, and I don't have any specific information on that matched pair of urns.
Oh,
The more children see this now, the more they'll grow up with a love of history and some sense of mansions and things like that.
you said that that design matches the design on there, matches the design on the floor or something?
Well, the carved flowers match the design on the edge of the tabletop. And then the design in the center is geometric. It doesn't exactly
Oh,
match
it's like geometric, just like the
to
ceiling.
complement the
And
ceiling.
the bottom of the flower pot, sort of.
Yes.
With this triangular shape. Okay.
Now, these are the dishes that the Betchers used for their formal entertainment. Absolutely exquisite dishes.
The desk is made in the style of Louis XIV. Louis XIV was quite a character, and this furniture during this time was really, again, as you can see, very fancy and rococo in style. And the chandelier, of course, was
Again, another carved jade lamp.
during the time he was king.
Oh, that jade is so pretty.
Isn't that beautiful? And it really shines with the
Does that come
light
from
on the
Africa?
inside. No, China.
China?
Uh-huh. Those are Chinese jade lamps.
They had children, about junior high or elementary age, I don't know exactly how old they were when they first became governor. But
The room at the end I neglected to mention was called the palm room because they had many urns with palms planted in there. You'll notice this piece. Again, it's a 19th century reproduction of a 17th century piece. Back then, they did so many things with the animal feet, the bird's wing, and the long neck of the swan.
it's quite amazing. Isn't it beautifully done? With such bright colors. I've been told azure blue really great.
Now, as you look up the stairs, you can see the first part of the private level. The picture on the wall is Governor Ritter and his wife Jean and their 4 children.
Have you ever heard that song that said, "And the Governor's True" or something?
I don't remember that.
Sweet Home Alabama, it goes, "And the Governor's True,"
Oh,
something. Something
I
about
never
governors
noticed
or
that.
something. I don't know. It's clicking or something.
Sure. These portraits are, this is Gladys Cheeseman, who was married in the first formal event in the drawing room. And this is her daughter. The screen is a European screen, even though it has Chinese motifs on it. And again, another Chinese lamp. You'll notice the detailing on the railings up to the stairs. There are 2 different kinds of spindles.
That's what you call them, spindles?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
The upright pieces
I didn't know you called them that. Now I know.
under the rail.
I'll never forget again.
Okay. This is what is known as the billiard room. When the Cheesemans built the home, it was a family. And I believe Mrs. Cheeseman, it was a music room. I believe she added the muses, the rectangular pieces with the parts being represented. Then when the Betchers bought the home,
I like that light.
yes, that's a billiard table light.
Oh, I've
Mr.
never seen
Betcher
one.
converted this room to a billiard room, and he installed that light, and of course it hung much lower over the billiard table. And he wanted to make the room a little more masculine. He added the 4 warrior heads in the 4 corners.
Warrior heads. Oh, warrior heads.
Uh-huh. After Prohibition, Mr. Betcher added the bar, and the mirror here is behind those 2 mirrored doors you saw in the entry hall that used to allow you to enter into this room.
Oh.
When John Evans married Mrs. Cheeseman's daughter, he used this room as an office. And then when he and the daughter had their first baby, they moved out. And